Welcome. We are back once again for What Happened on the Wrestling with Story podcast, where we go over everything that happened on tonight's episode of Smackdown for August 2nd, 2024. This is the go home episode. So tomorrow is, of course, SummerSlam 2024. And it's going to be a great show, I think. I'm really excited for it. I did a great breakdown, if I do say so myself. Did a great breakdown for it earlier this week on the podcast, which you can find over on the channel, which of course is Wrestling with Story, over on youtube.com. I'll put a link to it. That's going to be right here in the graphics. And then if you're just listening to me, you can hear me in the show notes. So they'll be able to find a link. And so I hope you guys go and give that a look-see. Of course, earlier in the week also, if you do listen to the podcast, you were probably able to check out, I did a long-form interview with my buddy Steve Orlando, who is a comic book writer, where we talked about all things going on in wrestling, as well as how wrestling influenced his comic book writing and some of his upcoming projects. So I really hope you guys gave that a listen. And so let's get into it, see if we can get out of here. I am battling a incredibly nasty flu that I picked up at Comic-Con, but I did not get the same thing that everybody else got, which was COVID. So on that front, I feel like kind of a winner. So hooray for me. Also, I just want to point out, let's see if you can find him right here, right above me. I got a new little Kevin Owens figure. He's like right there. Little Kevin Owens. So if you're watching the video of this, you get to see there's a little Kevin Owens standing right next to Gunther and Triple H. And Penta Obscura. So, I mean, it's really, there's a little party going on my turntable behind me. Anyways. I'm trying not to choke because Jesus Christ, my throat is killing me. There it is. There's the coughing. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, let's get into it. It was a good episode of SmackDown. I actually think it was probably one of the better episodes we've had in a while. There was a lot of rumors online that we were going to get, at the very least, Jimmy and Jey Uso showing up. A lot of people were speculating that we were going to get Roman Reigns. I might have made a graphic for the episode that said Roman Reigns, for the live stream that said that Roman Reigns was going to show up. He did not. So, I mean, it was a little bit unpredictably, nothing really happened. It was kind of a traditional go-home show. And we talked about this a lot for Raw this week. One of the problems with Raw this week is it was very much just table setting. There was which is fine, right? Because you're setting up for a PLE. You're setting up for this pay-per-view that has had all of its matches pretty well worked out in advance. The problem with doing a lot of table setting on a table that's already made, that already has its invitation set up, is that it doesn't feel like a lot is happening. They did do one thing, I will say. They did a couple of things that I think changed that. And we'll get into that first with the very opening of the show. Opening of the show was Cody Rhodes calling out Solo Sikoa, essentially saying, I know why everyone's here, so let's get this on. Let's get Solo out of here. Solo comes out. Solo says to Cody, let's do this right. You think you beat the Bloodline because during this Bloodline Rules match at WrestleMania. Well, why don't you prove you can do it again? Let's make tomorrow night a Bloodline Rules match. And Cody said yes. This is a really interesting choice. I find it a little bit fascinating. Number one, it should definitely be an escalation. This feels like a thing that should be happening for their next match, not for their first match. I think to some degree, it feels like they're doing it to help set up one of a couple things, right? They're either doing it to help set up a way for Cody to lose but not lose dignity, which is legitimate, or they're doing it to help set up Roman Reigns or Jimmy Uso or Jey Uso or whoever else to get involved on Cody's behalf and not break the match. So it's one or the other, or possibly both. So I get it. It certainly brings a little bit more heat to the match tomorrow, because I think the match feels a little cooled off. It doesn't feel like it has quite as much vim and vigor to it as it probably should for being what is ultimately going to probably be the headline match of the night. I was thinking about it, and like one of the interesting things about how you end up having to program WWE shows because you have two world titles is that you can't just put, like on an AEW show, for example, the world title match is pretty much always just going to be last, right? With these shows, you can't just put the world title last. You have to put the world title match that's going to have the biggest oh my god moment last, because that oh my god moment is going to impact the rest of the night. So you want to have it be the thing that you go home on, right? So you want to have it be the thing that you leave the audience with so that they can then come back on Monday for Monday Night Raw. So that means that there's not, you can't put the other world title match last, right? You can't, you're kind of stuck where like you want to put that world title match, which is going to be CM Punk. It's not even CM Punk. That's funny. In my head, it's CM Punk. So you have your first world title match, which is Damian Priest versus Gunther. That match is probably going to be your opener because you have to put them opposite each other. And there's going to be some kind of big, elaborate twist, no matter what, in the other match. I don't think there's going to be a big, elaborate twist in the Damian Priest match. I think the biggest twist you might get in the Damian Priest match is that the bloodline sort of breaks up. But even them breaking up feels like that's going to have more to do in the Liv Morgan match with Rhea Ripley. So you're in this like weird sort of programming thing. But I will say this, where those matches fall on the card when we actually see the card playing out in real time tomorrow is going to actually dictate a lot of what we think is going to happen. So if the Solo Sikoa match goes first, I can all but guarantee you Roman Reigns is not coming back. We can 100% set that aside because that is not a sort of thing that you want to do at the top of your show, because then the whole rest of the show is just going to feel like a letdown because nothing is going to be able to rival that moment. So just keep that in mind when you're watching tomorrow. And by the way, I will be doing a live stream despite the massive head cold that I have. I will be doing a live stream tomorrow of the entire SummerSlam. So I do hope you join me over on either on Twitch or on YouTube. And I've added streams on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter as well, but it's I actually prefer it if you come to either Twitter if you come to either YouTube or to Twitch. Up next, we have a really great little barbershop promo from Carmelo Hayes talking trash about Andrade and about how great he is, which then leads us into Andrade versus Carmelo Hayes. And this match, it started off slow, but by the end of it, like I will say, like this has got to be one of the longest just straight wrestling matches we've had on WWE TV in a long time, or at least it felt like it. And not in a bad way. Like it actually felt like a legitimate, good, solid match, which shouldn't be a surprise because Andrade is a machine. Like that guy is just fantastic in the ring. He is a pleasure to watch. And seeing him go with Carmelo Hayes, like Carmelo is young and green, but he's got a lot of potential. There's a reason that Shawn Michaels has sort of chosen him to be like, the second coming. Like Shawn Michaels really believes in him because I think Carmelo has the ability to be a Shawn Michaels. Is he as good as Shawn Michaels? No. Does he have the potential to get there? I think he might. I think he really might do something special. I think they need to refine his character a bit. I think they need to sort of figure out something beyond him just being an egotist, because that's really all there is he's just really loves himself. And there's not quite enough there. I think they did him a huge disservice bringing him over when they did, because he was so hot and so like all consumed by the storyline he was doing with Trick Williams. And I think that even though that story was technically over, the heat that he got from it was so situational. It was so based on that storyline, and then porting him over into the main roster without necessarily having a reason for him to have that same heat has not done him any real favors. That being said, it was a great match. Andrade went over. Carmelo was sort of like humiliated, and we start to see like what I'm hoping is going to be a character transition where Carmelo has to realize is that he needs to start working harder, and maybe we'll actually start to see some growth for him, which would be good. Up next, we get Santos Escobar versus Apollo Crews, and just heatless. Apollo Crews is interesting to me. Like, I think I get it. I get, like, he's got a great look. He's great. He moves great. Guy's incredibly talented. Santos Escobar, King Cueno, as I like to think of him from his days in Lucha Underground, is incredibly talented. But just, again, like, it's a little bit of a, like, why feud. And I don't... Again, like with Baron Corbin is sort of wrapped into this, and none of them are really being used for any purpose. I don't know what they're chasing. I don't know what their goal is. There's no title involved, so they're all just sort of fighting just to fight. And look, I get it. It's wrestling. What I find interesting is, considering, when I see the criticism and the hatred towards AEW, what everyone says is like, well, they're just matches for matches' sake, and everything is just because they have a grudge. That is what this is, right? Like, there is no substance to this. I want more from the story. I want them to be doing more. I want them to be earning more. And you have guys who are all extremely capable of it. Baron Corbin is a fantastic performer. Like, I'm not talking about his wrestling. I'm talking about his acting. I think he is really capable of doing it. We saw that in NXT. He's not really being given anything to do here that's interesting or compelling. And Santos Escobar, same thing. Like, we saw it. I mean, he was that good under a mask in Lucha Underground. He was pretty goddamn compelling when he was on NXT. And I even would argue, like, even though maybe went on a little too long and didn't quite have a lot of angles to it, meaning it wasn't like a particularly fleshy or like thick story. Even the stuff he was doing with Rey Mysterio last year was, it had some bite to it. This does not, and you can see they're all sort of struggling to find their place. Then we got a backstage segment with Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair, where they were talking about their match later tonight against Fyre and Dawn for the world titles, saying how they're going to get their titles back. And, the problem with all of these promos, whenever they talk about those titles, is it just sort of puts a fine point on the fact that they've done nothing with Fyre and Dawn. They've had one title defense, and that was this week on NXT, and it was a good match. The match on NXT, it was actually a very solid, enjoyable match. So yeah, it's a weird choice that I don't quite understand, to put the titles on them and then sort of do absolutely nothing with them. I don't quite understand it. They're really talented. They're extremely good in the ring. They got a great look. They're not bad on the mic. Why put titles around their waists and then not have them defend it? I can understand if there's something personal going on. I know that one of them just lost their mother, and that was, part of sort of woven into the title defense, that them winning the title in the first place. But, I want more from them. I want to see them. And we got some more when we'll back into that when we get back up to the actual match, which we got later tonight. Then we got this big scene with Logan Paul revealing his banner that's going to hang in the scene. I try not to talk about politics and stuff on here because I have a feeling I'm probably a lot more liberal than almost everybody listening. Or at least everybody who watches wrestling. And, but I can't stomach Logan Paul. Like, I think his whole gimmick beyond just his character, I find him kind of repugnant. I find his behavior repugnant. I find his politics repugnant. And I find the way that they've scheduled him and the way they've used him is repugnant. I get why he's there. I get the value he brings, like literally that he's paying for the advertising that helps pay for things, which is, good for him, good for the WWE to make that money. But the dude doesn't show up. He doesn't do a good job when he does show up. I feel like his promos are just not great. The match work is fine. I just don't. It's hard to enjoy him, I think. And the thing that kind of comes to mind, I was watching on the live stream tonight, and Nick Aldis is standing there, and you have this guy in Nick Aldis who's a massively talented wrestler, just incredibly talented. He's great on the mic. He's got a great look. He's super talented, and he stands around wearing a suit. And then you have Logan Paul, who's a douchebag, who gets to wrestle. That bums me out. Just bums me out. And then LA Knight comes out, cuts a promo, he's written the word "yeah" on Logan Paul's banner. I guess that's a sick burn. Not great. Yeah, just sort of the whole thing left me a little flat. And then it ends with LA Knight stealing Logan Paul's car, which is a direction to take, I suppose. But all of that is, of course, setting up their match tomorrow, so hooray. Come out of that into a pretty good package with Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn, setting up their match that they're about to have, and sort of trying to establish them as a legitimate threat. Again, like I said, it's a little weird just because they have not done anything for months now. But they come out, they had a really good match with Cargill and Belair. It really relied pretty heavily on Belair. Cargill felt like she was being held back a bit. Before we got into that, by the way, we had one more little segment with Logan Paul complaining to Nick Aldis, who again looks like Nick Aldis. Just you stand there and you think like, man, I wish that guy was wrestling. Why isn't that guy getting a match? I want to see him doing stuff. Let's play back that. We should see old footage of him wrestling Cody Rhodes. That'd be fantastic. I'm into that. Anyways, we go back. The Cargill Belair Fyre and Dawn match is really solid. It's a good match for all four of them. Jade Cargill, whatever biffs she had during that Clash of the Castle match, she seems to have gotten her practice in because she really does a great job performance wise. Looks really credible. She looks great. She's really charming. Just does a great job. The match gets blown by Blair Davenport, who does a run-in, gets the disqualification for the champions. The champions retain the title, which makes me think, a couple things. One is like, I'm glad, at least they're sort of aware that they have blown it with her and not done anything with Fyre and Dawn. Putting Blair Davenport with them is a good move. Like, she's a good fit with the two of them. So giving the three of them together is a nice little stable. And hopefully that gives them all something to do. We come out of that into a long Nia Jax package, really selling how much of a badass Nia Jax is. That was really good. Really just selling the feud and giving some heat to it, which it's been a little heatless, I think, overall. So this is a good play. I like this a lot. Really compelling, and making the case of just how not just how dominating Nia Jax is going to be, because she is, but also that she's kind of deserving, which I don't feel like they've done before. I think they've always sort of just played her. They've played her as a threat. They never played her as the one who deserves to be at the top. And this time they really did. We came out of that into a delightful segment with Tiffany Stratton getting from Nia Jax her brand new Money in the Bank briefcase. I saw there were some people in my chat, and then there was some people online who were saying like, well, she just got the new briefcase. There's no way she's going to cash it in. She is 100% going to cash it in tomorrow. I guarantee you she's going to cash it in tomorrow. I don't know who she's going to cash it in on. I don't know that she's going to cash it in necessarily on Nia Jax. My guess is actually that Nia Jax is going to lose tomorrow, and then Tiffany is going to cash it in on Bayley and get it from Bayley, and then it puts Nia Jax in this weird position where she didn't win, but she has her friend who she's supposedly protecting, who has the title, and then she's sort of uncomfortable with what she's supposed to do. But it was a great little segment, and then it ended with my absolute 110% favorite, which is Chelsea Green with Piper Niven coming to criticize the design work on the briefcase. God, Chelsea Green's amazing. What a delight she is. And then finally, we got our big tag title match, which is Tama Tonga, and Jacob Fatu versus DIY. DIY cut a promo about how this is the place where they grew up and that they have been seeing wrestling since they were small children. And then Johnny Wrestling had his family there with him, so he was talking about how the bloodline might be about family, but he's about family too. And they had a banger of a match. Like, this was a straight out of New Japan style banger match. Really, really incredibly solid. And they did something really special here which was surprising, which is while the Bloodline got involved, they didn't actually overwhelm the match. They let it be like a straight, pretty like clear-cut win. And then most shocking of all, there was no big reveal. There was no Jimmy and Jey Uso. There was no run-in from Cody with anybody. There was certainly no Tribal Chief. There was no Roman Reigns. They just let the Bloodline get the win and then be dominant and just sort of take the moment and have their sort of moment of glory to really start to set up what's going to happen tomorrow. But it felt... I think in the moment it feels like a letdown, because I think we'd all built up in our heads this idea that like, oh, there's going to be more. There's going to be more for us to have here. But the reality is, again, this is the go home episode. Everything that's been put in place has been put in place. They're not going to add a new element. They're not going to do something more. And the fact that we got this new element, that it is a Bloodline Rules match, that's a lot. The fact that they gave the belts to Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu the night before, that's a big deal. Like, they actually did make some pretty sizable story changes that were not predicated on, anything. They were really new and sort of unnecessary. And I think that's actually a good thing. That actually gave it a little bit more feeling of unpredictability than we got even on Raw. And so, surprisingly for me, I actually think SmackDown was the much better show this week. Much preferred. I really enjoyed it. It sort of flew by. It didn't feel as fat. It didn't feel as loaded. It just felt like a really solid show. All of which is to say, I am very, very excited for SummerSlam tomorrow. I can't wait to see it, and I can't wait for you guys to join me. So please do me a favor. If you are looking for somebody to live stream with tomorrow, please come and join me for my live stream on Twitch, on YouTube, on my Instagram, which is Wrestling with Story, on my Twitter, which is @JoshFialkov, or on my Facebook, which is, I guess, @Wrestling with Story. I don't really know how Facebook works. It's very confusing for me. I'm going to throw up all the links in case you haven't seen them. They're all going to pop up right here. And if you want to support the channel in other ways, you can always tip us. There's a tip link that'll be down in the show notes. And you can also support us by picking up some of our rockin' t-shirts. There's actually brand new t-shirts that I just added, which are not flashing across the screen right now because I'm really sick and really want to go to bed because I feel like crap. But I will make sure to put those. Those are up and available on thefialkov.com/store. They're also up on everywhere that you might also buy shirts, like Etsy. So yeah, do me a favor. If you want to support us and let me know that you enjoy what we're doing, there's a few ways you can do that. You can subscribe. You can click thumbs up. You can write us a great review. You can give us 5 stars. You can support us by purchasing our merch. And you can tell your friends all about us. So thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow for SummerSlam. And of course, wrestling forever. Peace out. See you next time.